Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shrimp Tank in Boca Raton, Florida, where street smarts and book smarts collide. I'm your host today, Jason Hill, with my co-host, Dr. Roland Kidwell. He's a director at the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. We have an amazing crew today, some of the best entrepreneurs down here in South Florida. They're going to go into details of the do's and don'ts of running a successful business down here in Florida and all over the United States. But before we get into that, Roland, AKA the Shrimp Doctor on Instagram, what should we know with what's going on at FAU right now? Are you guys going back to school in the fall with the students? What's happening at FAU?
Well, we are. I wanted to mention one thing today. We're doing some defenses of PhDs, actually. A couple of people actually getting their PhDs in entrepreneurship. And we're placing these students as professors in the schools are San Diego State, North Carolina A&T, University of Tampa, and Tennessee Tech. So we're pretty happy that we're able to send out students who now are going to become faculty members. A couple of them focused on entrepreneurship and written their dissertations on it. So that's been going on for a while. It's a 4 or 5 year process, but we're doing some of those dissertation defenses this summer, and virtually, of course. But we are going back to school, and we're in school right now. We have our classes running online, but in the fall, we're going to have a mix. We're going to have some in face-to-face classes. We're going to have some that are still online and some that are flexible going back and forth. So things are moving forward, and not a lot of folks around yet, but we're looking for folks to come back and get it going again.
Yes, I'm starting to see a difference this week. I'm seeing more cars on the road. I'm seeing more folks at restaurants, and most importantly for everyone watching, support your small business owners. It's so valuable right now. I've been wearing this shirt every single week because 99% of small businesses is out there in the United States right now need your support. Over 50% are employed by small businesses, and it's so important to not make all your purchases online at Amazon, for example, because these little business owners need, that extra kick, especially what they're going through right now. And if this is your first time tuning in, you could check the 100+ episodes on iTunes, iHeartRadio, up on our website, the Boca Raton Shrimp Tank Podcast.com. We've really had an amazing journey with 100+ episodes where we've done them in person, and we've really gotten to really know our guests and find out what they do behind the scenes to make them successful. It's a lot harder than anyone can imagine, versus what sometimes we see online, on social media, where we only see the good, but they tell us the ugly side of entrepreneurship and, the hours that are put in behind the scenes. So let's just jump right on in. We have 4 amazing entrepreneurs today. We always like to start with our past guests. We're going to start with Ellie Vail. Ellie, if you don't mind, spend a minute or two, and every guest, we're going to go in a circle telling us about your business and where you are right now with everything going on with COVID-19 and everything else happening right now. And Ellie, if you want to listen to her past episode, I think she was episode 76, where she discussed her business for over an hour in person in our studio. So Ellie, for our audience out there, tell us what's happening.
Sure. So Ellie Vail Jewelry is one of the fastest growing luxe fashion jewelry brands out there right now. And we specialize in gold-plated jewelry that's hypoallergenic and water resistant. And what we mean by that when we brand and market our company that way is that typically with plated jewelry, you can't shower in it, you can't work out in it because the plating will wear off relatively quickly. So with our jewelry, that's not the case. So it's under $100 and super, super high quality. So it allows you to live your best life while looking amazing. And that's been like our biggest selling point. We've been featured in 500 different boutiques worldwide. Nordstrom is one of our retailers, Revolve, and Urban Outfitters. So that aspect alone has really separated us from the competition, which has opened those doors for us. And during COVID, we're just hanging in there like everyone else.
Sure.
Honestly. Had to get my hair dyed a few times because the grays are starting to come through. But,
And most importantly, you've gotten me out of trouble a lot of anniversary gifts.
Yeah.
And, Valentine's Day gifts, birthdays for my wife, right?
Yes.
Right down the block. So whenever I need a present, I know where to run to. Shay, tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world. I think we met on LinkedIn a little over a year ago, and kind of had this sense, I'm like, this content's pretty good. I see where she's going. Tell us what's happening.
Thank you. Yes, it's great to finally be here. I know we've been communicating for a while, so thank you for having me. So today, everything is moving digital, right? Even before COVID happened, everyone knows that you need social media, you need a presence there, you need to grow online. It doesn't really matter which industry anymore. And a lot of businesses struggle to actually create effective videos that actually gain traction and attention online and move the needle in terms of followers, inbound leads, and more revenue through social media. So that's where I come in. I teach business owners how to create effective videos for social media around their brand and around their business that's going to attract more inbound leads and grow their following on all social media platforms, but primarily on LinkedIn, where Jason and I met. So COVID has actually been great for business. I had the best month so far in April. It was a record month for me in this past April. So silver lining, I know a lot of businesses out there are hurting, but for myself and for a lot of the other digital agencies that have already been helping for people to go digital, I do think it's actually improved. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to just help more business owners and get them that jump start that they need on social media.
Well, also the Shrimp Doctor. We want Roland's account to hit 1 million followers in the next few years, right, Roland?
Amazing.
It's up to 100.
There's not many professors out there that will nickname themselves the Shrimp Doctor.
No,
right?
it's the _shrimp_ doctor.
Love it.
So I expect to see 4 more followers here in the next hour.
Nicole, we met through a past guest that was on the show, and tell us your backstory.
Yeah, so I'm an estate planning attorney, and my firm was created to help people keep their kids and their assets in the hands of the people that they choose instead of with the government. And so in a past life, I was actually a trial attorney, but always did a little bit of estate planning. Now this has become my focus. I love it. It's much more rewarding to work with people than it is with big corporations. And COVID-19 originally or officially gave me a nauseous gut feeling at first because business completely died out. I think everyone had a freak out moment and then thought, oh crap, what happens if something happens to me? And so things picked up and have been busier than ever. Before COVID, I was already doing some virtual appointments, but now I feel like this is just going to be the new normal for me. It's been really, really beneficial and efficient. So it's been good. This has come to teach me a lot of things for sure, but I definitely have a lot to learn in terms of this social media marketing and digital marketing. So I'd love to talk to you guys afterwards about some of your input on some tips that you might have.
Sure. And I've seen a lot of that. Being in the financial service business myself, everyone had this to-do list, and finally they're getting time, to go down it. And of course, one of the things that everyone always forgets to do is their legal documents that you mentioned. And I could see that just booming right now. And especially that you've adapted to Zoom and you've adapted to using DocuSign likely, where a lot of folks, your competitors haven't, the bottom line, how often do you see attorneys on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, for example? So it totally makes sense. And Manish, tell us what's going on. We met at the TEDx Boca Raton event last few years. Tell us what's happening in your field.
No, it's great to be here finally. We met at TEDx probably 2 years ago now, and we talked about getting together and doing the podcast. And I'm glad we're finally doing it. We're like Shay mentioned, we're incredibly busy now. Our company PeakActivity is over 120 people, and we've been growing throughout this COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, and our overall business is really focused on digital marketing and technology, specifically in technology, mobile apps, and e-commerce solutions. And if you think about, like you mentioned, Jason, buying from Amazon or buying from your local business, well, Amazon's got this e-commerce thing figured out, but the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses don't, and they need expertise, they need talent, they need technology that gets them on par with Amazon, because as consumers, we're all expecting that Amazon experience. And we need to figure out how to bring that to the masses. And like Shay mentioned, you've got to use those videos to monetize. And we work a lot with influencer marketing, for example. How do you get somebody at a small scale with 1,500 followers to recommend your product and get more sales, things like that are really tricks of the trade that everybody needs to use in their business. So we're happy to be here and spend this hour talking with you guys about that and really help entrepreneurs out growing their businesses.
Nice. And when did you start your business? I forget.
Just over 4 years ago.
Nice.
Almost 5.
Cool. Well, we're excited to dive deeper to everyone's businesses. Roland, you want to kick things off and ask one of our guests a question that comes to mind?
Well, I wanted to ask Ellie about the Revolve partnership. I know that my daughter has been taking advantage of some of the deals that you're offering there in recent days. Is that something that is taken off more in the last couple of months? When did that start? And could you talk a little bit about how you put together what's really a strategic alliance, I think?
Yeah, so, I mean, Revolve, if you're not familiar, they are the world's largest fashion retailer, e-commerce, literally in the world. So they were definitely our number one wish list account. And I had been reaching out to them for years, probably before I was ready to, but just being ambitious. Anyways, about 6 months ago, they actually applied on our website to open up a wholesale account. They took that initiative on their own. It's a different buyer, totally different contact. So obviously we accepted. We were like, you guys fit the bill. It's good. So then we started talking about an order, and this was about a couple months before COVID, probably two months before COVID. And then they actually put their order in 2 weeks before COVID. And then COVID happened, and then they actually cut their order by 70%, which is normal for these retailers going through this right at the time. So that was a blow, but we ended up selling out in 48 hours, and they've placed 9 reorders in the last month. So
how has your supply chain been affected? A lot of stuff is manufactured in China.
Yeah.
Has that had a big impact?
So everything is delayed. I mean, I'm sure everybody's ordering things online. Doesn't matter where you're ordering from, even in the US. Things are just delayed entirely. We actually had more problems when the coronavirus was predominant in China because our factory workers were literally not able to work. So that was the part, I would say, 5 months ago? Was it 4 months ago? That was worse than it is now. Now we're just dealing with delays. Luckily, our product is still getting to us, which is the most important thing. I'm trying not to drive myself crazy. We're getting product. It's coming. It's a few days to a few weeks delayed. Can't really ask for anything better, to be honest. So luckily, our customers and our retailers have been super understanding with that. And the ones that have cut their orders to be safe, luckily our product flew out. It was almost better because I feel like we were able to sell out in 48 hours because they had less units. And every time they've reordered, it had the same effect, and they've upped their reorder. So, we've been blessed with that for sure.
And how do you handle customer complaints? What I'm noticing on Google is a lot of people are complaining that they're not getting their items on time. All brands, across the board, and it must be frustrating for a business owner, when you just have supply chain issues, and all business owners are going through this, but people keep putting negative reviews out there.
Yeah, so this is something that we're working on right now. So with e-commerce, it's to the point that somebody made earlier where everybody is expecting that Amazon experience, right? So USPS for us, first of all, they want free shipping. Okay, so we offer USPS 2-day priority shipping, which is the most cost-effective for us footing the bill. And 9 out of 10 times pre-COVID, there was no problems. It delivers in 2 days, everyone's happy. Now with COVID, USPS is, they are like bottom of the barrel, right? So the express carriers like UPS, FedEx, DHL are probably delayed like a day. If anything, they're not really suffering from it. So USPS is just, that's what we use to ship. So it's unfortunate that everybody's feeling it from all angles. I've tried to talk to my customers personally saying, I've ordered personal items overseas. I've ordered things from even within the US and in April, and I still haven't gotten them. And I'm actually moving in 2 weeks. So all of my packages are going to be delivered to a house that I no longer live in. So that's another thing we'll have to discuss. But I think what it is that it's the new normal for now, and people just have to understand that, there's not really much that we can do about it other than try to inform you as best as we can.
Yeah, I agree. It hurts me. It hurts my heart when I see these business owners, over such silly comments on social media, and it hurts them so much on Google and Yelp and other, review platforms. Shay, what is your opinion right now? When you have a successful business like Ellie's, there's growth, but then how do you get the message across on LinkedIn when you're so excited, you're doing well in business, but there's a lot of business owners not doing too well. And you have to be very careful, of course, the way you come across, right? So how, are you helping your business owners kind of portray that message, let's say?
Yeah, that's a great question. It comes also down to what the business owner feels comfortable doing. For example, I make a lot of jokes about current events, what's going on in the world, because humor is a great way to build community and get attention online. And right now, what we're all going through is like a lack of community, right? You can't gather in groups. Social media is being heavily censored right now. It's just hard to connect with other humans. So I love to use humor as a tool to connect people, but it's also up to the owner's discretion, because some people don't think it's appropriate to make any jokes about Corona, given the seriousness of this virus in some cases. So I would just say, do whatever you can to be helpful. That's what my business coach always tells me, just how can you be helpful, Shay? What can you do that's helpful? I look at humor as being helpful because it's a way to make everyone smile in a dark time, or most people smile. Those who, won't take it, won't be offended by it. But what can make your target market's lives easier? Go to LinkedIn with that mindset. What do I know about what would make my target market's lives easier that they don't know, and present with that information and make all of your content just centered around that. And especially in regards to COVID, what would make their life easier right now? Obviously, everyone has moved to a more digital format. People are ordering delivery. Everything has moved online. So anything that you can do to support that. I know a lot of people who do live events, and they've just had to pivot to moving digital and doing webinars. So, maybe providing a free webinar just to get the word out there, just to get people in the door. I really focus mostly on giving, and I don't worry so much about, how am I going to get leads? How am I going to close deals? I put all of that energy into giving, and it comes back tenfold on social media. And that's what I'm really passionate about, teaching other business owners, how can you, depending on your industry and depending where you are, how can you really just give, and it will come back.
Yes. And to dive a bit deeper into it, how do you handle the growth that you're experiencing on LinkedIn? A year or so ago, I saw your trajectory, and things just keep on compounding. And most business owners really, they fall apart, right? They just can't handle that type of growth. And you've been on a lot of big stages, recently get a lot of invites for a lot of shows, the TEDx conference. Like, how did you handle it in 1 year, let's say?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It is where a lot of businesses have their hang up, right? Like they get more and more business, but then they don't know how to scale and how to manage it. So they miss out on that additional revenue and getting to that next level. They might have a goal, but reaching and sustaining it is another story. So, I'm really, really fortunate. I dropped out of college when I was 20, ended up starting my first business when I was 23, and ended up getting an investment and scaling a company. By the time I was 24, I had over 30 in-house employees doing digital marketing campaigns for big companies like Petco, Yahoo. And I learned about scaling a company. I also learned what not to do in scaling a company. So I'm really fortunate that, like in my early 20s, I feel like I really had my, you could call it like a boot camp, where I learned all of the unnecessary things that came with scaling a company. And really a lot of my team is virtual. I'm able to scale because I have systems in place, processes in place now, SOPs in place now, where as soon as the volume goes up and it's no longer sustainable for my current sales team, my current admin team, everyone who's helping me to manage my account and all of the inbound requests, the leads, it's almost just like a hose, right? The more content I post, the more the lead hose, it just gets stronger and stronger. So I'm really fortunate in having that experience at a young age, scaling a company. I had a lot of overhead. I learned a lot about just unnecessary like in-house employees. A lot of my team is remote now. Most of my team is actually in other countries. I am the only American white girl in my company, if you can believe that. And there's about 13 or 14 of us now. So I'm just really fortunate to have found people around the globe to support me. And I also have one woman who's been with me basically since the beginning of time. She was the first person I even ever interviewed for a position when I first became an entrepreneur when I was 23. The first person I even ever interviewed for a job. Like, she was my first employee, and she still works for me. So she's been a huge factor in helping me scale and helping me train anytime it is ready. It is time to bring on more people.
I had a question for both of the marketing, Manish and Shay. Are there particular brands that you've seen that have been really helped by this crisis, that have done certain things that, and these could be brands that you work with or just generally looking at the industry, brands that have been particularly helped or particularly hurt by this in terms of how they've responded or been proactive? So both of you can kind of take a hit at that, if you would.
Go ahead, Shay.
Me first?
You want to go first? Go ahead.
Well, I loved what you said in the beginning about small business owners, because as much as I, as a privileged American, do love my Amazon, it's like Amazon doesn't need any more money. And look what's been happening, right? They have thrived through this coronavirus even more. All of the small mom and pop shops were deemed non-essential, but Walmart is open when a lot of these mom and pops sell similar things to Walmart. So I think it's unfortunate that a lot of corporations are thriving right now that do not need to thrive. And it's very sad for like the heart of America, these mom and pops, these small business owners. They've really taken the hardest hit. I have a lot of friends who do live events that have, it comes down to mindset, really, right? Like, I have a lot of friends who do live events, work in the live event space, and they've either taken on a victim mentality mindset where they're like, oh no, poor me, I'm losing revenue, this sucks. Or, they got over that quickly, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, figured out a way to do everything digital, start doing webinars online, this and that, like I mentioned before. So I would say definitely anything that has to do with meeting in person has taken a hit. But at the end of the day, these travesties and these hardships in life, I really do believe always come to teach us something, always come to help us grow. Without challenges, life would be pretty boring, right? Like, we wouldn't grow, we wouldn't level up, we wouldn't learn how strong we really are. And I think that this coronavirus, in many cases, while I'm sad for the businesses it has affected, and I do think we could all do our part to support small business owners and be mindful of, keeping the economy alive as much as we can, helping keep our communities alive. It also just comes down to the individual, how willing are you to veer away from that trap of, oh, I'm the victim, oh, poor me, because that can be tempting in times like this, and really pull yourself up by your bootstraps and have faith in God and just figure it out. Like, what? Maybe this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm going to figure out a way to keep going. And I've also seen that in a lot of my business owner friends who've been affected. So that's really inspiring and something we can all model after.
Sure, Manish, go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. The businesses that we've worked with, the brands that we've worked with that have embraced change and seen this as an opportunity are the ones that are getting ahead. It's incredible. If you tried to have a conversation with 20 CEOs before COVID, they'll be all too busy flying around the world. They're not accessible. And what's happened now is, if you look at it as, if you're trying to have a conversation with the CEO, you can have a conversation with the CEO. There's people are authentic now. People are engaged. They're doing business nonstop. And so if you're embracing that this is an opportunity, this is the phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste, is really the opportunity for businesses right now, where you're able to have the conversations you need. You're able to reach the audiences you need. So what if you can't go and shake somebody's hand in person? That's not a barrier. The barrier is pick up the phone, call somebody. We've had businesses that we work with that were deemed non-essential and closed. And the ones that were the scrappiest found ways to have private appointments figure out the online selling and have the order shipped. I mean, they really were resilient and moved ahead, planned ahead, moved ahead, and of course the ones that were planning prior to this happening about the newfound economies and the new ways to engage audiences. Amazon's been around for 20 years, guys, right? This isn't something that's been instant and overnight. It's one of those things where it's been a long time coming, and it's great for certain businesses because if you've got the mindset of an entrepreneur that you're going to adapt, you're going to find new opportunities. Those have been thriving. The victims, the woe is me, that we're shut for 2 months, we hope will open back up. Those are the ones that just you've got to take those street smarts and adapt to what's happening, and you're going to come out ahead.
Did you think then that the Amazon, the Walmarts, the Targets, even though they're the ones that are opening and they're providing a lot of the goods, their brand may be damaged just because of their success and these other businesses are falling by the wayside? Or you think they'll sustain?
I don't see a shift in the American behavior, to be frank, that it's going to damage their brands, because I think they're gonna, if you take a long-term view, they're gonna outlast the short-term damage, right? The reason that Amazon's been so successful is they've experimented in alternative models, Amazon Web Services and other business units, the way they ship their product and supply chain. As Ellie mentioned, the 2-day post office type of thing, it's Amazon ships their own products, and they're struggling too. But I feel like it's really up to the U.S. consumer base or the worldwide consumer base to dictate change, and we'll see how that goes overall. But I don't feel like the Walmarts or the Amazons are damaging their brands by they're being there for their the shoppers when you can't find a toilet paper or bread flour in the stores, and guess what, your Walmart has it. It'd be great if we could find ways for the small businesses to have voices to say, hey, we have toilet paper too, or bread flour. But getting that word out is the key.
And you said something earlier that stuck with me, is this opportunity, if you take advantage of it, right? Where in our past history have we been able to reach out to people on LinkedIn, on Instagram, to their inbox? They're all home, all these CEOs and business owners, and they're looking at their feeds. And that's what's made our platform really available. In the past, would it really been possible for me to get 4 business owners on this Zoom call at a time every single Tuesday? I don't think so, right? So it's like right now, you have that ability to reach out, and people have extra time, to explore other opportunities. So I think a lot of the success, Shay, on your end is because you're able to get through their inbox, and people don't have excuses anymore. In the past, there was always like, sorry, I have a conference, and they might've been lying. They might've had this or that, but now it's like, those excuses eventually run dry, week after week after asking them. And it's going to accelerate, businesses like Nicole. So Nicole, I'm going to jump into that. Your field was usually in person, mostly more commonly between 50 to 90-year-olds, right? And they weren't adapting to any of this technology. And I've seen overnight that all of a sudden you could do a Zoom call with someone that's between 80 and 90 years old. They know the technology, and you could take advantage of the situation by you yourself understanding how these platforms work, of course. So tell us a little bit, on your end, what you've been up to as a business owner and how you're kind of looking at this as a glass half full story.
Yeah, so we were waiting for some kind of an order from the Supreme Court saying that estate planning attorneys were allowed to do some kind of remote notarization and or signing of these estate planning documents, which would have helped us tremendously. We didn't get that. We're still required to do them in person. There's some online stuff that's allowed to be notarized, but when we're talking about, wills and trusts that need to be notarized and witnessed all in the presence of each other, that's a statutory requirement. It really made things difficult. So we started figuring out what can we do to be different and to still make this happen, because there was a lot of concern from the older population or the elderly during COVID, right? And so in the event something happened and they didn't have any planning, it's a big deal for them. So we decided to do drive-by signings. So we did all the meetings virtual. We would typically do like an initial consult via phone, a design meeting to structure their plan, which is pretty in-depth and can take up to 2 hours. That's typically done in person. And then we would meet one more time to sign everything with the witnesses and get everything notarized. So we're talking about at least 2 meetings in person, a total of, let's call it 4 hours. And now everything, I mean, I was able to do everything virtually before, but people still preferred to do everything in person, especially my older clients. And now that's not really an option. And so we did everything virtual. And I was pretty amazed too at the older population jumping right into these Zoom calls, whether on their cell phones. I've had people tell me their grandsons were helping them or their kids. I've walked a few clients through setting up and can you hear me? Can you see me kind of a thing? Press this, press that. But it's been actually a lot funner. I think it gives less formality to something that's but really important, and has kind of brought me closer to a lot of these clients that I maybe otherwise wouldn't have had this much rapport with. So difficult times for sure, but has increased, I think, the ability for us to connect in a different way, at least for me with my clients, and to get things done in a unique way, to the point where now moving forward, I really don't think that there's a need to meet in person until we sign these documents. And if there's any kind of special request, I feel pretty confident we'll be able to accommodate.
Sure. And, you know, same in my field. I remember being in New York City, you know, before moving down here 3 years ago, and sitting in rush hour traffic, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then all for a meeting that was horrible, you know, and you just didn't realize it was going to be horrible until you got there, of course. But now you could kind of do some of these pre-screened things over Zoom, and you have the same quality type meeting right over Zoom. And I think this is going to be huge for professionals that really realize that they could do business, you know, all across the United States, and it's a home run. You know, clients are willing to work with you. If you're in Florida and California, jump over Zoom. And in your field, of course, a little hard, licensing, of course, but a lot of other industries can really, if they were doing things in person, can swap to this model and really, you know, market, you know, across all boundaries on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and so forth. So why don't we dive in a tad deeper? I want you guys to ask each other questions, because we have some amazing marketers on this call. And I know, Ellie, you have a background, you know, that's really solid on Facebook marketing. Manish, I know you do pretty much all of it, you know, under your agency. And Shay, just your deep knowledge on LinkedIn. So I want to start. Shay, do you have a question for one of the guests, something within the marketing arena that you want to pick their brain on?
Yeah, well, I would love to ask Ellie some questions, because I think that jewelry and fashion in general is like a really fun space to be in right now with digital marketing. Obviously, we've all seen on Instagram, that's like the way to advertise these brands. You know, you've got influencer marketing. I see some really creative stuff happening with jewelry. I actually have a friend, an acquaintance that I know down here in Miami. He built a seven-figure business by selling bracelets and selling them on Instagram. So, but he's really creative with like his ad buying and everything. So I'm just curious, what is your main strategy there? Are you strictly running ads? Do you do influencer marketing? And how are you kind of having fun being in the fashion space with marketing your jewelry?
So we've tried everything, right? So being an entrepreneur, it's trial and error. You literally do it all until you find what works. So we've done influencer marketing. We've done all of that. In terms of an ROI, it has not been great for us, partially to our product being sent to them. So for example, if we send them this ring that you can barely see, and we, you know, even if we give them some guidelines on what we want them to post, it's really hard to see the product sometimes. I mean, we've gotten amazing photos from some of the top influencers, right? They're across the street in a necklace. I'm like, love the pic, love you, but like you can't see my stuff. So I think if you know, are handbags or apparel or something like that, influencer marketing is amazing. You should absolutely do it. But somebody like me who has more of a detailed, smaller product, that's been the worst part, is you can't really see the product in the image that they actually give you. So it's not really usable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times those big influencers don't even tag you unless you pay like a premium. So essentially useless for me. Yeah. So Facebook ads has been amazing for us. We do all of our creative in-house, and we recently just teamed up with a freelance creative company who's doing our content for us. And
are these videos or pictures mainly?
We've done both. So we've seen best results in just images with simple text, and images that are eye-catching. For example, we have one ad that's running right now that's doing amazing, where we have a model in a bathtub and our jewelry is water resistant, and it strikes up some kind of controversy conversation, people are like, don't understand it. They're like, what do you mean water resistant? Like, of course jewelry can get wet, it's not paper. But the point is, it strikes up the conversation, and we're actually allowed to like elaborate on that.
I love
And
that.
every time we do, 9 out of 10 times, people are like, you're right, okay, that makes
Mhm.
sense. So that's been really helpful for us, is building on that water resistant brand, which is something that I started 6 years ago, where we were the only company that marketed our product that way.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's what we built on. That's where we've seen the most success from, specifically using that terminology, even water resistant. And we've done some like little boomerang videos, like literally a second to a second and a half, super quick. And anything longer than that, people just don't really have the attention span we've seen. So with that, I mean, it's just been super fun, just building on that creative aspect, seeing like when you're scrolling, you see so many different things all day. A lot of it's the same, a lot of it is different, but you just continue to scroll. So what's going to actually cause you to stop? I mean, for National Hamburger Day, we literally had a sandwich bun, like a hamburger bun, and a bunch of gold necklaces inside of the hamburger bun. I mean, a lot of people stopped for that picture. So, you know, we're just kind of trying to like what you said about humor, and just making it lighthearted and just having fun, and not actually thinking too much about it actually gives us a better ROI, and we see a lot more response to it.
Amazing.
Nicole, you got a
Oh
question for
gosh,
one of our guests
I was
today?
dying to jump in. I'm thinking here of all these creative and awesome things. I'm in a predominantly white male and very, very old field, although I'm young and a completely different generation, trying to make this estate planning stuff a little bit cooler and hipper. Please give me some insight on what either of you, Manish or even Ellie, Shay, what you think would be something that would help you know, a boring, we'll call it, not to me, I love the field and I think it's so interesting, but to other people perceived as a boring field, more marketable to young people. I say, you know, I love families with young children, because I think it's just as important to protect their kids and their assets as it is for older people. And it's more of an organic fit for me because I have young children and I'm a mom. But what kind of tips do you have for me that would perhaps serve my audience or help me stand out?
I could start. If one thing that I've seen a lot of, and I really think your comment about you're not going back to the old way of doing things. You're not going to meet in person until the end in the signing process. I've seen this a lot, especially in entrepreneurship, where you got to form an LLC. And a couple of years ago, like you had LegalZoom burst on the scene, and there's all this like disruption on how to form a company and stuff like that. And if I think about, I'm a parent with young children as well. Like it's about that convenience and that sort of modern behavior, if you will. If you embrace that and say, hey, like this is how our practice works. It's all virtual. You don't have to come in. You can just text us at any time, or you go to where the communication is. Like as a busy parent, I don't sit there, like I don't want to call somebody. And actually, I had I'm going to North Carolina into the mountains for a couple of weeks, and I booked online, and the agency that I booked through, they're like, hey, you got to call us now to finish the transaction. And I'm like, why do I need to call you if you have a text service and you booked online? So I feel like there's still that old, I'll call it the old stodgy way of, well, just come in and we'll meet with you and hear what your needs are. But it's like, no, I just want to like 3 steps here, and I want to be done with it. And I want to make sure my kids are protected, and I want to make sure you're the best. So my thought is like, you embrace that sort of, you know, I don't know if it's a word, modernity, like that modern practice. And I know everybody, to Ellie's point, you got like 6 seconds to capture me, right? Okay. If you can show me in 6 seconds that you're like that modern hip, you get what I need, which is time savings, convenience, and the best. Like I'm in. I don't want to go to the so-and-so law firm because they have the best name in town. I want to go to like, okay, you're just going to engage with me right here. You're on my Instagram or you're on my Facebook, and boom, I know you're able to connect with the audience that is that younger generation. That would be my thoughts.
Thanks.
Shay, I want you to answer that question as well, because a lot of professions like mine, Nicole's, are quite boring on social media, especially on LinkedIn when you see the same posts over and over again and they come off so spammy. Like, you need a will, call me. You need, a financial service professional to do your accounts, call me. And I know you have some knowledge, when working with other business owners in this space. Like, what do you do with these boring businesses, and how they could portray themselves better on these social platforms?
Oh, were you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Shay. Yes.
Great. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, so you're exactly right that it is boring. And on LinkedIn, a lot of people think that a content strategy is like releasing ads about their business. I've worked with lawyers, Nicole, and like, I will say it is one industry that's a little behind on social media. So you're actually
a little is an understatement.
Right. Like but you're not alone. I mean, like, this is still new. A lot of lawyers don't think they need social media. It's really about getting attention. So there's many different aspects to marketing, right? There's teaching people about, getting people into the funnel, creating the right messaging to hit on your target market exactly when your target market sees you. What the biggest value that I bring people is just teaching them top funnel. How do we just get attention? You can build all the funnels in the world and have the perfect messaging that hits right on your target market. But when is your target market going to be in the mindset to buy from you and also happen to see your post? Like, that's so unlikely. So for me, I focus on eyeballs. How can I get 1 million views on my page? Because then once I have 1 million views on my page, there's bound to be some of my target market in there. And there's also bound to be some loyal followers I gain from that, who then by word of mouth, recommend you to other people. So for example, even though you're in the law space, I actually recommend talking about more general content. You mentioned something before about being passionate about working parents with their children. LinkedIn is awesome for parents and children. I always joke, the only reason I don't have 1 million followers on LinkedIn by now is because I don't have a husband and kids. Because so many people on LinkedIn can relate to that. They all have a family. So if you could make content around family life, not even necessarily about what you can provide for the families, but just general family stuff. A lot of people think, oh, that's too personal for LinkedIn. I could never. Nonsense. A lot of my highest performing posts in terms of the lead gen actually came from posts where I was just being personal. I was just sharing a vulnerable story. Hey, I messed up this client contract and here's what I learned from it. People are like, oh my God, because there's not that authenticity always on LinkedIn. So I would just urge you to think outside the box a little more. Like, definitely mix in content of your niche and positioning yourself as an authority, so people who go to your page also see that content and also know, oh, she actually works with lawyers, and okay, cool. But you really just want to gain fans, and how you do that is providing general value, connecting to other humans. Last thing I'll say, which you made me think of right away when you said, there's all these old men in this industry. It's like old men, that's actually a really funny piece of content. You could literally make a skit playing into the day-to-day life of what it's like to be like a younger woman in this industry, and it's all old men and being frustrated. Maybe you could even like play into technology and them not getting it, and or if you don't want to act or you don't feel creative, hire actors, but there's certainly a way to take your day-to-day industry, no matter how boring or underutilized on social media it currently is. There's a way to take that and make it entertaining, but it's not always going to come in the form of directly advertising my business or even directly advertising the things I can do around my business. That's where professionals get hung up on LinkedIn. They think it needs to all be buttoned up, suit and tie, only about my industry. Not at all. In fact, I do not think I would have grown as quickly if I only talked about video marketing. Even though I know a lot about video marketing and I have knowledge to share, people follow me for the humor. People follow me for the authenticity. People follow me because of the storytelling. So I would just keep that in mind as well, and just start. You never know until you try, and just do what you can. Anytime you feel inspired, whip out your phone and shoot a video about it. It doesn't mean you have to post it. Just start to get in the habit of shooting and documenting your life and your work.
It's a good tip, because I'm terrible at doing that, but it's on my to-do list for this year to get better at video and sharing.
Well, let me know. Let me know if you want to learn about my program. I have lawyers who've gone through it. They love it. So
sounds good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to make a point to Shay's point. It's actually funny because we've spent so much money on professional photo shoots, which are definitely necessary in terms of like our website and showing, the product on a model. It's needed. It does not work on social media. I mean, I've spent so much money and I post a photo and I'm like, this is going to do amazing. They're going to love it. if it could have gotten negative likes, it probably would have.
Oh my
And
God.
then we post something that took us 20 seconds,
Yep.
and it's what they want. And now we literally have a creative agency who does photos that come off. I'm sure she spends a lot of time and a lot of energy on coming up with her posts, but it transitions in a way that's carefree. And I just whip this up kind of thing. And that's literally what people want to see on social media. So I was under the same impression, everything has to be so professional, and I don't have the right lighting, and I don't have the right model, and I don't have enough money to even do any of this. They don't even want that. So literally, just exactly to her point as well, is showcasing a little bit more general and tapping into your audience and their other interests, right? So whatever your demographic is, of course, somebody who's a lawyer, right? Or has a family, like what other interests are they interested in? What else can they relate to? In terms of social media, that's exactly what they want to see. And I would look at it like, this is actually a blessing for you, because in terms of being socially, what's the word for law firms and lawyers right now?
Socially
non-existent. Yeah, this is literally like a platform for you to literally dominate it. So like, there's no competition right now. Nobody's doing it. So you doing anything at all is already doing the right thing.
Yeah. And there's a law firm out there. I love what Ellie said. Everything she said about you spend all this money on a high cinematic production. Yeah. It's not worth it. Everything on social media goes viral. It's shot on a cell phone. You know, people overthink it.
Blurry.
Yeah, it's true. There's also a law firm out there. I forget the name, but they do content around like how to protect yourself when you get caught with weed. It sounds funny, but they've like grown this huge following because they're like hilarious, and they like make songs about what to do with your weed when you get pulled over by the cops. And of course, all these millennials started following them, and their law firm just like and it's not all that they focus on is weed. They just knew that like on social media, weed is trending right now. So we're gonna make content around it. Just Google like law firm social media weed content. You should be able to find them. I forget their name, but really hilarious content. I do have to hop off, you guys. Jason, Rollin, thank you so much. It was nice to meet you all. And thank you again. I look forward to being back.
Absolutely.
Take care, Shay. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Ellie, we're waiting for your shrimp that we give over to Roland, and we'll put one around the Shrimp Doctor at Global Entrepreneurship Week this year, and you could shoot some cool footage of Roland at FAU. How about that?
I usually wear that 24/7. Just today,
she has to make a custom one up for you though. Last year was the $9.99 one on Amazon.
That's true.
We're hoping Ellie makes the custom one.
I guess it's the first time I'm publicly announcing that we are launching a men's line in August. So,
oh, okay.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if a shrimp pendant is geared towards men, but it's geared towards one man. So I guess that's a start.
There you go. I'll put a joke photo up on Instagram, and then it'll take off. It'll go viral. I got more likes on my little shrimp pendant on Instagram than anything else. Manish, you haven't asked a question yet. Who would you like to ask a question to?
I actually have a question for Nicole, and it's a little bit different from social media and the whole business, but I think, what we're seeing, homes are being bought differently, wills are being done differently, like the entire society is changing. I was curious if you had any thoughts on innovation in sort of the legal world or the professional services world, and like, what do you see 3 to 5 years from now that, we're in the business of helping software companies innovate, for example, like what's going to come out in the space that may be new, and what do you see sort of happening in your profession that's going to be completely innovative and disruptive, and sort of change the game? We'd be curious to kind of hear your thoughts on entrepreneurship in professional services, specifically in legal, over the next few years, and what opportunities there'll be because of what's happened.
Yeah. So I think in my field, specifically in the estate planning field, I can't really speak to, there's so many other fields in the legal field too, right? But to mine specifically, I think it's going to create a lot more work for my field, and I'll tell you why. There's already been a shift. This isn't a brand new shift, but I think that's more and more heading towards people doing their own legal documents in a variety of ways. The Rocket Legal Zooms of the world, LegalZoom and RocketZoom, I think both the same. There's one other that's a big one in the industry, and that it does everything from divorce to your own will to trusts. I mean, you name it. And they, you type in some information and it drums up this document. They have all these disclosures. There's sometimes an attorney on call that you can reach out with state-specific information. The problem is that these programs, and so I had a client come in one time and tell me that he did a will online and he paid, I can't remember, it was like $200 for it and wanted me to look over it. And this client happened to be a foreign national. So he was a dual citizen of here in Brazil, didn't speak English that great, and accidentally disinherited one of his children because he clicked a wrong button. And so that was a really unfortunate thing, but fortunately he came into my office and I was able to kind of walk him through and fix that mistake. But that's not the point. The point is that he caught the error. There are going to be people that don't. And so after that, I thought, let me see what I can do in terms of creating my own will online. I had no intention of actually doing it. I just wanted to see what the process was like. And I'll be honest, it was a couple of years ago and it was a little confusing for me at points, right? And I'm in this field and in this industry, so I can only imagine for a layperson what that's like. And for someone who just wants to get a will, but doesn't really understand the consequences behind it, yeah, that's going to be a great tool, except we won't know if that works when someone dies, right? And so then that person's family is left with, I use expletives. I'm trying not to do that here. It would be a manure show, we'll say that. And so that generates a lot of business for me in the probate world. So I say often that I'm just a glorified cleaning lady. With my planning, I'm really avoiding a mess. And for the people that don't get around to planning and doing things in advance, I clean up the messes through probate. And so I think to get back on topic to say is that I think the trend is still to continue doing things in an automated way. And that's different in every industry, but in the services industry, it's putting the onus, my perspective is that it's putting more of the onus on the consumer, the client who wants the will or the divorce or the whatever, where you enter your information and it populates into these fields. And that's great, but that is not a substitute for every little nuance. And even if there is a program that has every single nuance in the law and explains to you what those consequences of each decision is, you're going to be on that program for hours. You're going to get frustrated. At some point, you're going to click something just to click and get done. So while I think that some things that are very, very simple can be and should be done online, and I have not often, but I've turned away clients who said, I only care about it's going to cost less than $200. And I said, well, then you're best served by going online. This is not going to work for you because I'm not going to do you any favors by sitting here and truly understanding what it is that you want and what you have to, give to your beneficiaries or heirs, whatever it is. And so I think that the trend is automated services, anything that you can plug in and a program regurgitates a form for you. I don't think that that's the best use for everyone, right? It depends on what the goals and what the objectives are to accomplish. But I think it's going to create a lot of work for people like me in the future where someone disinherits their kid or does something inadvertently, thought they were getting what they thought they were, and where's LegalZoom or RocketZoom going to be when you mess up and you say, no, but I read that box that said X and it's not serving me now. I mean, we have to have someone else come in and clean it, and there's no machine that's going to do that. So pros and cons, but I think it's really headed towards that direction. It's going to create a lot of headache, but also a lot of work for people like me.
I have a question just came in from the Facebook Live audience, Jason. Do you want me to?
Go ahead, ask it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's from Rosalind Kidwell. No relation. It's for Ellie. She wants to know how you got the idea for these sample sales that you do on Instagram.
I hear my team laughing in the background. We actually came up with this sample sale by a problem, which a lot of our ideas come out of problems. With mass production with China, we have a lot of damages. We have a lot of pieces that are not in perfect condition, but they're not sellable for the price that we sell them for. So it got to a point where there was so much of it where we were like, well, maybe, I would buy it for $20, $25. For $100, definitely not. We would never send that out to our customer and have them pay full price. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And we have grown a pretty engaged following, and it's growing every single day with Instagram. So we were like, why don't we just put it on our Instagram stories and just have people DM us if they're interested in the product, and we'll just send them an invoice. So that's basically how it started, and we did a couple $1,000 that way, and my team is sitting there answering the DMs and getting the emails and matching it to the customer and getting their address. And then we were like, okay, this is like straight out of the 90s. I mean, we need to, like, there has to be a better way. So there was, and we, our website's hosted by Shopify, and they actually have this thing called a buy button, which is basically a custom link to a product that you can basically embed anywhere off of your website and allow people to purchase. So we were able to scale our sample sales from about $2,000 to about $25,000 in a day.
Wow.
So our sample sale Fridays are, I mean, potentially getting to $100,000 Fridays, which I'm really excited about. And our customers love it because they're getting product that, you know, some of them can't afford a $100 necklace. I mean, I understand it. So we're actually opening up a new audience that's welcoming them into our brand who maybe can't afford a full price item. And this is just as good to them. I mean, you really can't see the imperfection unless you know, use a microscope or something crazy.
So the sense, maybe that's the college market?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's just people decide to spend their money on certain things, and maybe they just don't want to spend $50 on a necklace. They have other things to spend it on. So, you know, I thought it might hurt us. What if they don't want to buy our full price stuff? And we actually have, if anything, just opened up an additional market because of our sample sale. And we actually have customers who buy full price and sample sale. So if anything, it's just helped us entirely. And it's actually a business in itself. And we literally prep Wednesdays and Thursdays for our Friday sample sale because it's grown that much.
Cool.
So it's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to have the last question for Dr. Roland Kidwell. I want someone here to ask him a question. Roland's the director at the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship, and the whole design of our podcast is where street smarts and book smarts collide. So going to pick on someone here. Does anyone have a question you want to ask Roland? Go ahead, Nicole.
I do. I have, I would say 98% street smarts and 0% book smarts, which is ironic being that I went through a lot of schooling. But what will you tell, you know, if I were your student in your class and I said, I eventually want to be my own business owner, and perhaps the advice would vary, right, from a type of business, but what is, or what are some of the core tips or principles that you would try to instill in someone who wants to go out and open up their own business?
Well, I think what you might want to think about, first of all, is what value you're providing to a potential customer, what pain they're in, what problem they have, what is it that might need to be solved. And I think a lot of this process involves talking to people. So, I mean, sitting and planning in an office versus getting out and talking to potential customers about what you might have to offer, how that might fit to solve their problem, how that's going to provide some value. And, you know, to plug, I'd have to suggest taking the Entrepreneur Bootcamp that we offer through the Adams Center, which is 8 weeks. And, you know, we do it face-to-face and virtual, but basically you might come in there with a business idea and get a sense of, okay, what are my customer segments? How do I distribute this? What are my customer relationships? But mainly, what is the value to the customer? And a whole variety of other elements that go into
Just to interject real quick, is that boot camp open to the public or just for students?
No, it's open. It's open to the public.
Great.
It's starting up in the fall. We have a workbook that's co-authored with my colleague, Dr. Kevin Cox, who is the co-host of the Shrimp Tank and also assistant director over at the Adams Center. But it's offered to the public. You can attend it virtually or face-to-face. And we're trying to spread it out and train more people to teach it. But the idea behind it is, at the end of the day, you've been able to try to test that idea by going out and talking to people, processing that, developing it, maybe pivoting and going in a different direction. But the idea is that you can actually test hypotheses, questions that you have about whether this business is going to work or not, or this segment of business is going to work to the intended audience. So that's one thing to think about. But I think going back, the main thing is getting out and talking to people about whether or not what you're offering can solve their problem. Does it provide them with some value? So that's
I've officially learned I've done it all backwards, but thank you.
okay. Well, you're successful,
Common.
so it doesn't matter.
Most
Yeah, I
entrepreneurs
agree.
do.
I think that's usually how it works with entrepreneurship. I mean, every single person I hear, they're like, I dropped out of college. And, you know, me too. And I've definitely had the street smarts in my roots, and I've learned that, I mean, every single day. But I definitely want to go back and just see what I can learn, you know, book smart wise, because I feel like if you're able to have both of those things, which most entrepreneurs don't, that's where you get to 20, 50, $100 million. And that's what I'm interested in. So I will sign up for that.
You might do that. You might save some time too. You never know.
Or a headache, which, you know.
Yeah. So that's actually a class that's a non-credit class, and you can basically sign up for it, take it, but it isn't something where you have to go through a lot of rigmarole to enroll in the university or anything like that. That's the boot camp.
to know.
But yeah, it's
Okay,
probably be offered, I think, September, the next one's starting up.
Great.
Yeah.
Everyone, feel free to hang out after we stop the Facebook Live. Everyone listening, we're going to be back next Tuesday at 4 p.m. You can check out all these amazing shows on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or up on our website with all the photos and bios at the Boca Raton Shrimp Tank Podcast.com. Thanks, everyone, for listening on in.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.